Hello, I'm Bob Smeerfak. But not really. This series is designed for theological seminary students with approaching exams who have not had time to read the Bible, and for castaways on deserted islands with nothing but time and an internet connection. Matthew, chapter 9. Let's go. In this chapter, Jesus tries to put the chapter 8 pig debacle behind him. After the townsfolk got mad at him for killing their swine herd, he and the guys sailed back home. Now, when people find out a dude can cure sick people, they just won't leave him alone, which is why doctors can never get a good night's sleep. Still, they were nice enough to bring the next one directly to him by carrying the guy on his own bed. But Jesus shook things up this time. He didn't waste time healing the guy's palsy. He skipped to the ultimate. He forgave him of his sins and told him to cheer up. Thing is, there were a couple of scribes hanging around who thought this was blasphemy. They didn't say anything, but there are no privacy settings that can keep Jesus out of your head, and Jesus called them out on their evil thoughts. And just to prove he could forgive the guy's sins, he went ahead and healed his palsy too, though he didn't explain why that proved he could forgive the guy's sins. Then the guy had to get up and carry his own bed, but that was a small price to pay. He was probably glad the scribes were there, or Jesus may have stopped at forgiving his sins and left his palsy alone. Then Jesus rounded up a tax collector named Matthew and took him to dinner. A lot of other tax collectors and downright filthy sinners showed up too. There must be a Pharisee in every crowd because a couple of them saw this gathering and complained to Jesus' disciples about the folks he was hanging with. Nothing gets by Jesus, and so he retorted that a doctor doesn't hang around with healthy people, so why should he? He said, "I'm all about the sick people." They must have been making a lot of noise because a bunch of John the Baptist's fans also pulled up and asked, "Why the banquet? We and the Pharisees are always fasting. Where do you get off?" Jesus basically told them, "I'm the reason you're fasting, but I'm here now. Wait until you can't get me to return your calls, then fast." Then he gave them a couple of tips on mending torn clothes and storing wine to further make his point. A doctor is always on call though, and a ruler interrupted with an interesting problem. His daughter was dead. Unfazed, Jesus took the case and went to the guy's house. Along the way, a woman touched his shirt, but he knew what that was about. She had a blood disease and wanted to get healed, so he did it. They got to the ruler's house, and everyone was carrying on. He said, "Stand aside, she's only asleep." They all laughed at him because they knew she was dead. But Jesus touched her and she woke up. So either Jesus lied about her being asleep and raised her from the dead, or he had an uncanny ability to tell when someone wasn't really dead and he woke a sleeping girl. Either way, that was big news and it went viral once again. As soon as he left, two blind guys managed to find him despite their disability and wanted the treatment. So he healed them, but he ordered them not to tell anyone. Maybe the fame you get from waking a sleeping girl is enough for Jesus for one day, but not for the ex-blind guys. For one thing, to go around and keep acting blind after you've been cured of blindness is a bit much to ask. Also, they were suitably grateful, so they spread that shit around. When you get this big as a healer, one of the perks is you attract more interesting cases. Next was a dumb man possessed by a devil. Possession is bad enough, but when you can't tell anyone else about it, that's too much. Jesus took care of both problems, and naturally the guy had a lot to talk about after that. The Pharisees, never too far away, noted that somehow Jesus must be in league with Satan. Jesus showed no sign of slowing down. He preached and taught and healed and really felt for all the people. He told his disciples there was a ton of work to do and not enough people to do it, and that they should pray to God for more workers to be sent. And he had to have known he was telling them to pray to him because he was God, for something he already knew they needed because he was God, and he was the one who told them they needed it. And he'd told them in chapter 6, God already knows what they need before they pray for it, and he knew that God knows that because he was God. Next in this series, we'll move on to chapter 10. Spoiler alert, Jesus sends his 12 faves out to heal, cleanse, and resurrect people, but he tells them to travel really, really light. As always, I'm not a religious figure, but if you want me to save you or damn you to hell, I'll do my best.